Hi there, everybody. This is Veronica Valley, and I'm here today to talk to you about relationships and sobriety. And I'm just going to share this as normal into my Soberful Facebook group so they can see it too.
Hi there, everybody. This is
Share
Veronica Valley,
to your group.
and I'm here today.
Soberful, share. Okay, and go live on Instagram, and then we will get started. So let's go live on Instagram. And I just want to check if you're watching this live, let me know that you can hear me okay on Facebook. Can you hear me okay? I have new headphones and I always worry that they're not going to work and I'm just talking to myself. So if you can hear me, can you just give me the thumbs up or, just hi or yes, we can hear you in the comment section? That would be super helpful. Okay, so we are going to be talking about relationships and sobriety. Sorry for the delay as well. I was actually helping Chip, funnily enough, Chip was doing a webinar right now in the Sober for Life program on sex, love, and intimacy. And we just had a slight technical hitch and I was helping him start that. So it sometimes happens because neither Chip and I are technically great with this stuff. So if you're watching on Facebook, can you let me know that you... Oh, can hear you. Thanks, Liz. I really appreciate it. Okay. I have these earbuds now and I just don't trust that they're working. So we're going to talk about relationships and sobriety today. And it's funny, I just did a great podcast episode with my friend Laura McCowan. It's gonna come out in December, and we were talking a lot about relationships, and we were talking about how everybody, when they get sober, everybody gets to a point where they have to do some deep relationship work. Usually that's around romantic relationships, whether you're in a relationship right now or you're not in a relationship right now, because alcohol masks a lot of stuff that's going on. And we have to bring that out into the open at some point. And relationships, my goodness, they're tricky, right? They're hard because they trigger us. Relationships, what happens in relationships is relationships trigger our childhood wounds and childhood trauma. So the pain that we can feel in a relationship often, it feels like a very intense pain. It's often a pain that is very difficult to deal with. The reason for that intensity is it's actually triggering what I call our original pain, which is our pain from childhood trauma. So I know for me, I was 3 years sober. I was about 30 and a relationship ended and I went into a black hole of despair. Which is where I always went with relationships. My relationships when I was drinking were really dysfunctional. I didn't so much have relationships in that I took hostages. So my relationships were really dysfunctional. I was terrified of being alone. I had a great feeling of not being worthy and not being good enough and fear of not being loved. And my relationships reflected that dysfunction. So when I got sober, I was really desperate for that pattern to end because I didn't have my anesthetic. I didn't have my numbing agent, and I had to do all of this stuff like with all of my feelings exposed, and it was really, really hard. And I got to the point at 3 years sober where I hit my emotional rock bottom. I wasn't emotionally sober. I was sober, but not emotionally sober. And I had a relationship and it ended and I went into the black hole of despair, and I didn't want to drink, but I realized I was in big trouble because I didn't want to drink, but I was actively making the decision not to kill myself. And I knew then that I was in real trouble and I needed to get help. And it's all of this stuff that was all triggered, low self-esteem, insecurity, fear, and it just showed up in my relationships. I was what's called anxiously attached. Don't leave me, 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 which is of course extremely attractive. I mean, who wouldn't want to be in a relationship with somebody like that? So our family of origin sets us up for all of our romantic relationships. There's no avoiding this, guys. It's completely unavoidable. Whatever your relationship was like with your parents, that's how you learn love. Now, if that was dysfunctionally communicated to you, then you're going to just carry that into your adult relationships as well. So I had the classic, my father left and I experienced abandonment, and I would recreate that in my romantic relationships. And the pain of being abandoned by a partner was not the pain of losing them, because quite frankly, some of these relationships were ridiculous. It was recreating that original abandonment, and that's why it feels so deep. So when we talk about, and I spoke about this a couple of days ago, about emotional sobriety, we need to really focus on doing this work. So this is why there's no trick or hack to getting sober. It's not like we do like a quick thing and then we're sober and everything's great. Getting sober is almost the easy bit. Doing the work that's underneath, that drove your drinking behavior, that's the stuff we have to focus on. And it's interesting, in the conversation I was having with Laura on the podcast, it feels harder, but living in this dysfunctional, sober drinking world is much, much harder. There is an easier way. And it's much easier when you have the how. When you have that, okay, so I identify with this, Veronica, exactly what do I need to do? So the first thing we have to do is identify our attachment issues. Now, I didn't know this was a thing. I just thought I just need to find Mr. Right and everything will be perfect. And that's not the case. I actually had to change me to become the kind of person I wanted to attract, which is what I have in my relationship with my husband over the last 13 years. And I tell you that because I just really want you to know how utterly dysfunctional and awful I was at this. I mean, the fact that I've been married this long and I have a really healthy, functioning, not perfect, relationship with a really stable, wonderful man is nothing short of miraculous. And I want you to know, if you are in that turmoil, if I can do it, so can you. So everybody struggles with relationships, everybody. And what we're talking about here is personal development work. This is work that everybody has to do. Every adult on the planet needs to do work to heal their childhood. No matter how perfect and wonderful your childhood or your parents were, we still have wounds. And often those wounds are not appreciated or validated, or they're just kind of hidden away. We have to get those out at some point. So we first of all have to identify what our attachment style is. So there's 3 or 4 kinds. There's anxious, which is the don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me. There's avoidant, which is I want love, but don't come too close, don't come too close. There's anxious avoidant, which is a combination of both. And there's secure. And we want to be securely attached, which is what I am now. So it's possible to go through that journey, but you need to, there's different things that you need to focus on as you go along to do that. And that's a lot of the stuff that I teach. So I think it's really important to know that you can change your experience. Whatever experience you're having with romantic relationships, it doesn't have to be that way. You can change things. The first thing we have to do is we have to be responsible for the experience we want to have. And we have to be very, this really can come under the 5 pillars of sustainable sobriety. This is the first pillar, movement. And movement is about being conscious about the direction of your life, and it's about being conscious about the choices you are making in relationships. So what can often show up a lot is codependency, which is where we believe we are responsible for our partner's feelings, that we should shape ourselves and act in a way to make them happy, to keep them happy, to please them, to bring them comfort, all of that kind of stuff. And we think that we're being loving or kind or considerate, but what we're actually doing is doing that to our own detriment. We're not taking care of ourselves. We're not putting our own happiness first. And this is not about being selfish. So when I say we have to be responsible for the experience that we want to have, what I mean by that is we need to be very conscious about the kind of partners that we're attracting. We have to be very conscious about how we are in a relationship. Do we compromise our values, our boundaries? Do we do and say stuff that's just not really true to who we are? So all of that stuff, when we do that, that's how relationships become dysfunctional, because they're then based on hidden agendas, they're then based on manipulation, and we have to be able to clearly see that stuff is happening to begin to break it. Now, I will tell you, it's really hard to see this stuff on your own. We usually need somebody else to help us dig out of this stuff, because we can't see it. When we're in the woods, we just can't see the way out. We usually need someone else to shine a light on that kind of stuff. So here's some of the work we have to do, and all this is going to do is enrich and make your life better. So that's a good trade-off. You put some energy into doing this and you'll get rewarded. I think that's a great deal. So this is some of the stuff we work on in Soberful Life. We have a whole section on boundaries. Now, if you've listened to any of Brené Brown's work, you will know that she talks about boundaries a lot. And she talks about that the people that are happiest and most successful are the people with cast iron boundaries. How do you have boundaries? What does that look like? I teach a whole method on how to have boundaries with family members, with friends, with romantic partners, so that you can stay true to yourself and true to the direction that your life is going on in. So we need to have boundaries. Part of that is learning how to say no, so that we can be more open to say yes to the things that we want to say yes to. Do you struggle with saying no? I struggle with that hugely. Saying no is and being able to do that in a way. So what often happens, the fear people have about saying no is that we're frightened that we're going to hurt somebody else's feelings. So we end up saying yes for some things that we don't want to do or don't agree with, because we're scared about how you're going to react to that. And that's how we end up compromising ourselves. So being able to say no and let go of outcomes and let go of responsibility for other people's feelings is a huge skill. I have a whole method to teach you how to do that. Codependency is where we get lost in other people. We just get lost. I don't know where you end and I start, and I'm only happy if you're happy. Again, that's about having boundaries, but it's also about having self-awareness. And also part of what I teach around relationships is dealing with difficult people. We all have difficult people in our lives. Quite often it's a family member. And you know, in certain cases we can not see them, but a lot of the time we have to deal with these people. We have to deal with them. So that there is a ton of skills to be able to deal with difficult people. I have quite a few favorite ones that work really, really well, that kind of diffuse these whole situations. I know that we have the holidays coming up. That might be when you see some of your difficult people, but just the stress and not having to deal with the crap, excuse my language, that difficult people can bring into your life. All of that can be life-changing. Now, why is this important to sobriety? Now, you'll hear me say this message again and again and again. If we don't deal with these difficult and uncomfortable feelings that relationships can trigger, they get uncomfortable, they get painful, and then our brains look for an anesthetic. And that's why we have to learn this stuff. So I am looking for the next 10 people to join the Soberful Life program. Is that going to be you today? Is today going to be the day where you just kind of plod on as you are? Or is today going to be the day that you invest $20, because that's all it is, into getting this information and learning these tools so you can make these changes? We only have 2 more days left. Enrollment closes Friday at midnight. Right now, Chip is doing a workshop on sex, love, intimacy, and attachment. And that will be filed in our library, in our workshop section, and you can access that and look at that whenever you're free. Well, that's a great thing about Soberful Life, is that you can do it in your own time. It's completely confidential and it's extremely affordable. We have hours and hours and hours of content on all of these different areas, but a ton on relationships. So if you are struggling right now with a relationship, be it with a partner, a family member, a colleague, and you just want to know how to change it, I have the how. That's what I do. I have the how. So I'm looking for the next 10 people to join today to be able to watch this workshop that Chip's doing right now, and to dive into all of the other relationship stuff and begin to make changes tomorrow. tomorrow. Just imagine what that could feel like. I feel so fortunate that I was able to do this work and to be able to transform my life, and it's still transforming, and I want you to have that experience too. I really want you to have that experience too. So if you are one of those 10 people who are ready to join today and start working on your relationships, there is a link in my bio on Instagram, or you can go to soberful.com. There's a bar at the top of the page. You can just click on that, take you through to the enrollment page. Well, there's a link in my description here. If you can't find it, just message me on Facebook or through my website, veronicavalley.com. I will be back on Thursday and Friday with 2 more little mini workshops and 2 more invitations to join the Sober Full Life program. By the way, you can cancel anytime, so there's no risk here. It's not an obligation. But if you are ready to be part of a community that is making these changes and is committing to themselves in this way, then click on the link and join today. Be one of those 10 people who's going to start things differently tomorrow. See you soon. Bye-bye.